A long time ago, well, it feels like a long time ago, it was July 20th of 2022, I found out that I was 9 weeks and 2 days pregnant. We were overjoyed when we got the news that we had already picked out names for both genders and began getting the house ready for a newborn baby. One we thought that we would be able to bring home. However, that once joyous moment soon turned into heartbreak and tragedy. Just a few short months later, I had an OB appointment to come in for a genetic screening to ensure everything was fine. My doctor enters the room with a worrisome look on his face. He says, "I have some upsetting news. However, I wouldn't worry yet until we have done further testing. We are ruling you as a high-risk pregnancy. The screening came back positive for trisomy 18. We're going to have to send you to Huntsville for an amniocentesis to make sure it's not a false positive." September 28th of 2022, we made the drive to Huntsville, dropped our son off with my mother and father-in-law, then headed to my appointment at the Women's Pavilion. I get checked in, we get called back. They have me in the ultrasound room getting ready for the amnio. They then decided to do an ultrasound of the baby prior to the amniocentesis to see if there were any noticeable characteristics to further prove whether or not he had trisomy 18. As they are doing the ultrasound, the nurse presents an energy as though everything was fine. The nurse wasn't saying that anything was abnormal or out of the ordinary, so we believed everything was okay. The nurse continues to ask, "Would y'all like to know the gender?" Hesitantly, my husband looked over at me, as we had previously talked about not knowing the gender if the baby did have trisomy 18, because we would be that much more attached than we already were. Under the assumption everything is fine from the lack of communication, we responded, "Yes, we would love to." The nurse then responds that it's a boy. Sorry. We felt warmth, comfort, overjoyed. And we had so much love for that child when we found out. Then the room grew spine-chilling as we noticed her taking continuous pictures of his brain, his nose, and his heart. The room fell silent, our minds racing with thoughts, praying to God that everything was going to be okay. The doctor enters the room and she looks at the ultrasound with a seriousness on her face. We begin to feel concerned. She looked at me nervously, and by the look on her face, our hearts dropped into our stomach. We knew what she was going to say before the words even left her mouth. She turns to me and says, "Due to the characteristics, I do not think that amnio is necessary. Everything I see points to trisomy 18. The room grew weary and dark. I proceeded to ask what characteristics and how likely is he to have it. The doctor responds, "He has 2 holes in his heart, no nose bone, and his brain is not developing." He tested 96% positive and 4% negative. I said, "So there's a chance." She replied, "Yes, there is a chance. Would you like to proceed with the amnio?" I then, of course, said, "Yes, a chance is a chance." Shortly after, they performed the amniocentesis, and they said they will either post the results or call me with them. Anxiously, I waited 2 long weeks, opened the clinic's online portal to access the results, and I seen that they had finally came in. I clicked on the results, and as I read the final results, I had a pit in my stomach. I read that he did, in fact, test 100% positive for trisomy 18. My phone falls out of my now numb hands, falling to the floor as I fall with it, crying, wondering what the right thing to do is. A few troublesome days have passed. My husband and I are headed to my next appointment, carrying some hope in our hearts that there are options they have for us. We arrive at Isbell Medical Group in Fort Payne, Alabama. We walk in with our hearts heavy and minds racing. I check in and sit down in their waiting area. 20 slow minutes pass by, and finally my name has been called. We are waiting patiently and nervously, praying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The nurse walks in and asks, "How are you doing today?" I responded, "Not well." Silence then filled the room, and I continued to proceed and ask a very important question. With my son having trisomy 18, I do not want him to suffer. What are my options? Can I be induced early and just birth him early? In hopes she would say yes, I noticed that she stopped making eye contact with me. I grew distraught because I knew the answer. The nurse replied shakily, looking down at the ground, saying, "No, there's nothing we can do. You have to give birth to him and carry him to term. He will either pass in the womb, come out stillborn, or pass shortly after birth." Heart pounding, mind storming with thoughts, stomach queasy. I thought, they're really going to make my baby suffer and then make me suffer. Who wants to watch their baby take their last breath? Who wants to bury their newborn in a child-sized coffin? Is this really what the world has come to? I don't want my baby to suffer, and my life is in danger. I had no idea what to do, and I needed help. Scatterbrained, I called my mother-in-law. She immediately sprung into action. She sent me an emergency abortion hotline number so we could have the funding we needed for the procedure. I decided to go to Washington, D.C. for the procedure due to the protesters outside of the South Carolina clinic. I just didn't want the negative energy. We managed to get everything set up through the hotline. The agency covered my hotel costs, the procedure costs, food costs, and gas costs. We are finally in the truck about to drive 15 to 20 hours to D.C. with my 3-month-old son, husband, mother, and father-in-law. We get to the hotel, settle down, take our showers, brush our teeth, and off to bed. The next day I wake up and begin getting ready for my appointment. We order an Uber and head to the Washington Surgery Clinic. I get there and the room is filled with women going out and down the hallway, all waiting to be seen. As we are patiently waiting, they call my name. I begin to tremble as I am headed back. As I look around, I begin to see how dark, dingy, and dirty the facility is. But I didn't have a choice. My life was in danger. My baby was slowly dying inside of my body. My life was in danger and it needed to be saved. Therefore, I just kept a smile on my face and let them continue. The staff was very rude. I had laid down on their bed, but due to an ultrasound and realized I was having the surgery due to medical issues with the baby. Once done with the ultrasound, they asked me to slide down. I proceed to slide down. Then the nurse yells at me to scoot down more. I did so while trying to maintain my composure. They put in a cervix softening pill and gave me 3 other pills to take by mouth and didn't tell me what they were for. They made sure to ensure me that my water would not break and should not break at all with the medicine they had given me. They then sent me back out to my mother-in-law. As I walk drunkenly to my mother-in-law, she notices how affected I am by the medicine they gave me and proceeds to help me back to the hotel. We make it back. She helps me into bed so that way I can sleep the medicine off. About 2 hours later, I wake up to my cell phone ringing. It's the clinic. They're ready for me to come back to the clinic and have the procedure. My mother-in-law and I begin our treacherous journey back to the clinic. 2 minutes into the ride, my water breaks. I am in labor. I begin to panic. My water was never supposed to break. After the 20-minute drive that was supposed to take 5 minutes, we arrive at the clinic. Doubled over in pain, I make it to the 2nd floor and open the door. The room in the hallway was still full with no doctors or nurses in sight. The only man in the room realizes how much pain I'm in and bangs on the door to get someone's attention. No one answers. He then opens the door, walks to the back, and brings out a nurse. The nurse pulls me back, hands me a triple XL adult diaper, tells me to put it on and to put back on the same clothes my water broke in. At this point, I am furious. The nurse sends me out into the waiting room where I waited an additional 45 minutes to be seen. Water broken, doubled over in pain, in labor. Finally, I'm headed back, about to have the procedure. They put my IV in, not realizing they had busted my blood vessel. I'm put under anesthesia. Procedure takes place. After the procedure was done, I'm being woke up by a nurse slapping me on my arm, telling me to move because another patient needed the bed I was recovering in. Still under the anesthesia, I'll wobble my way to the empty chair the nurse wants me in. I sit down in the lumpy chair, patiently waiting for the anesthesia to wear off. All of a sudden, I hear screaming and crying to the left of me. This young lady had her child before the procedure even took place. And a few moments later, still waiting for the anesthesia to wear off, the nurse approaches me and tells me I'm finished and that I need to leave. My mother-in-law on my right helping me down into the lobby, then into the car, and back to the hotel. Once we got back, I had slept from that afternoon until the next morning. I woke up that morning sad because I lost the baby, angry because of the law and the treatment I had received at the clinic, happy because my life was saved, and empty inside because I was no longer pregnant. After this had happened, I never wanted to go through that kind of pain again and decided to have a partial hysterectomy to ensure I could never get pregnant again. Shortly after, my brother-in-law, Tyler Blackman, and I wrote the article for the Huffington Post, did the Diane Sawyer special, and the ad for Maryland Lands. We were and are determined to spread awareness and overturn the law so no one else, no woman, no mother, would ever have to go through the same malicious tragedy we did. Thank you. That was therapeutic.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I'm